on.
All right. Can folks who are on the Zoom hear us here at the group? Thumbs up if anyone can hear.
Yes, I'm on the Zoom. This is Chris Broderick. Yes.
Thank you. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the first 2025 meeting of Central Park United Neighbors. Start with a little bit of the preamble for those who are new about Central Park United Neighbors. CPUN is the Registered Neighborhood Organization, or RNO, for the Central Park community. We provide a working forum for the residents of Central Park to participate in creating, developing, and fostering a vibrant urban community dedicated to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. At our monthly meetings, we facilitate the discussion of key issues with neighbors, engage in proactive problem prevention and amicable problem solving. CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all members of our community. And I am Liz Stallniger. I'm the board president for CPUN. Our mission is the betterment of the city of Denver by providing a forum for the residents living in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues, a network of communication, means of acting on matters of importance to the community as a whole. We promote public service, civil civic discourse, collective advocacy, and we're an all-volunteer board of Central Park residents and a registered 501c3 nonprofit. For our agenda tonight, we'll have for the community hour, we'll have our guest speakers, our Aleiya Evison, and Ann Dang from Radian Inc. To speak with us about outreach and engagement, kind of equitable strategies for engagement that RNOs can have with the community. Then at 7 p.m. we'll have our community partner updates. And then for our board hour committee report outs, we'll have our treasurer's report, a discussion of the Central Park Classic mini golf event, a planning update and budget request. And then we'll just close out the meeting with a community survey update, some outreach needs, and our look ahead for the February. So without further ado, I'll introduce our guest speakers, Aleiya Evison and Ann Dang with Radian. So thank you.
We're getting logged into Zoom, but my name is Aleiya Evison.
Oh, Aleiya.
No, it's okay. And I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Design Justice Project Manager at Radian. We'll talk a little bit more about what Radian is in just a second.
And I'm Ann Dang. I'm the Architecture Project Manager at Radian. And I actually don't have the Zoom invite.
Oh, it's the centralparkunitedneighbors.com/Zoom.
So yeah, we're here tonight to talk about the RNO Equity Toolkit, which is a project that Radian has been working on since 2019. And Radian is Colorado's only nonprofit architecture and urban design firm in as I said, in the state. And so we have been working with RNOs in different capacities throughout the duration of Radian's history. And over time, we started to see some patterns and hear some feedback that RNOs were looking to be more diverse and more representative of their neighborhoods. And so in partnership with RNOs, we started this effort to look at what does equity actually mean for RNOs and how can RNOs be more inclusive and equitable. So we'll talk a little bit more about the different phases. As I said, we've been doing this project for a number of years. Phase 1 was a pilot study. So the Radian team did research, trying to better understand what RNOs needed and what the current landscape of representation and diversity looked like for RNOs. And this included surveys, data collection. As you can see, those surveys were bilingual. There was partnership with community navigators, who are folks that are trained to be culturally relevant and able to talk to neighbors in different languages, depending on the neighborhood that they were in. And we were working with two RNOs in West Denver, so West Colfax Association of Neighbors We Can and Villa Park on this initial phase. So West Colfax is a nest neighborhood. Those are neighborhoods identified as the city as being at risk for displacement and gentrification. And so we decided to focus on West Denver just in the very early stages to work with work more one-on-one with some RNOs and better understand what they needed. So this initial research and study phase then grew into phase 2, where we continued to work in West Denver, and we received a grant from the Colorado Health Foundation to start actually resourcing some of the strategies that were identified in that first phase. So recognizing RNOs can only do so much when they have very limited resources, whether that's time resources, money, connections with different folks in the city. And so we opened the grant program up to the 9 RNOs in West Denver. 2 RNOs applied, so West Colfax Association of Neighbors, as well as Lincoln, Alma Lincoln Park. And they each received between $10,000 and $15,000 over the course of a year and a half to really start trying some of the strategies that we'll talk about later. This also culminated in the actual RNO Equity Toolkit, which is a print and digital resource that Radian created based on this research and work with RNOs. And we started to distribute this toolkit at our first annual RNO Equity Summit, which was last spring, where we invited RNOs from all across the city to come together to share resources and learn from the different contexts that each RNO has. And from that, we heard that RNOs wanted to go even deeper with the source material, which brought us to phase 3, where we were hosting RNO community dinners in the fall of last year to really dive into the different topics that are in the toolkit. And we also started partnering with members of City Council, the Office of Social Equity and Innovation, and HRCP. I always forget the acronym, but it's the Human Rights Division at the city, who is going to have a new office for RNOs. So we've kind of gone through this process of working really one-on-one in a very intimate capacity with RNOs who are interested in this work, and we are still working with RNOs, but we're trying to now look citywide. What resources do RNOs to be more equitable and to be more inclusive for all neighbors? So we're really excited about those city partnerships.
And this is an image of our RNO Equity Toolkit. So the red booklet is in English, and then the orange booklet is in Spanish. And it's essentially a workbook that we wanted to have for RNO members to talk about equity, but have guided questions and activities to really discuss it in that setting. And so we had different sections, and at the end of each section, there were facilitated questions that you could talk within your board members or even your general members. And there was also some resources in the back, which I had included a slide where you could scan the QR code to get those resources as well. And it was something that we were planning to have physical copies to give you this meeting, but we can also give that later after this meeting, but it's also located on our website, so you can check those out on radianinc.org.
Yeah, I don't think we have even enough copies. You all have a really good turnout. Sometimes we go to meetings and there's like 4 people. So we have now done 2 rounds of printing, and we might need to do another round, but we can get at least 1 copy of each for you all to have. And I'll give that to Liz, and I are in the same choir, so I'll give it to her tomorrow. Yeah, we have rehearsal tomorrow. So, but in the meantime, we will also send out the link for you to access the online version.
Yeah, and as Aleiya mentioned, during our RNO Equity Summit, we had used the RNO Equity Toolkit as the guiding main item to talk about throughout the whole workshop. And so it was a day workshop where we went through each section and did those activities all together in person.
I'd just say in that session, it was really, really helpful for RNOs who, a lot of RNOs are dealing with similar issues, but you don't get to talk to each other very often. So we also saw that it was helpful to do this one-on-one work at meetings like this and consulting work, but also to have opportunities to speak across the city to the different challenges happening.
And I wanted to speak about the purpose of our work. So Radian has been around for over 10 years. And so we've talked to and encountered with a lot of RNOs, just speaking about the lack of diversity and inclusion within the RNO board and also general members. And so this toolkit that we had created was to really address that there is a lack of representation and diversity, and that through the pilot studies were just more proof that we have discovered, and that we wanted to co-design the RNO reform with RNOs and not just to do it at a higher level and not talk to speak to the people who are within RNOs, and to really pilot these interventions. So when we had worked with these RNOs one-on-one to really scale them to be citywide and to decrease the silos between the resources that are currently out here. So INC has been doing work with RNOs, the city, and we have been. And so now we've started to be in more conversation together. And we just wanted to, so we had some diverse recruitment strategies planned to go over, but we also wanted to open this up to your organization to talk about, what are some things that you've been focusing on that you want to learn more through talking with us. We can dive deeper into these strategies, or we can, pivot the conversation to be something different.
Well, I think I guess to give you a little context on some of the things that we're working on right now, we actually have and I can have this down here. We have the flyer. We have a community survey for Central Park neighborhood that launched last week, and I think Brian sent me a quick chat saying, "Oh, we should have had it. We should have it in Spanish also," and that is something that it occurred to me, like, we need to set aside budget every year to have translation. I think that it was kind of a little bit of we had to regroup a little bit in this year's survey. And in order to get it out the door, there kind of wasn't enough runway for that process. But that's something that we're very much aware of. And so part of what we're working on right now is, and that we'll be discussing during our board hour, is the outreach strategy and distribution strategy for the survey. It's primarily been distributed online and through I think there's probably like different neighborhood Facebook groups, but that doesn't actually capture, I think we're a neighborhood of about 36,000 people right now. And so we're kind of looking at, okay, how making the flyer is partly to go to the apartment buildings, because we have very few renters actually respond to the survey. It's we've kind of year after year seen demographics of whose kind of views we're capturing in the survey. And so that's something that we'll be discussing. So if there's kind of part of the toolkit talks about how to do outreach to kind of underrepresented voices in the community, that's very much something we're working on. The other piece is we're entering the recruitment phase for our board. So basically February and March are really where, when we start interviewing folks who are interested in joining our board. And so we have a diversity statement when we send out, send out our community email saying, we really encourage folks who live north of I-70, because we kind of have that's an underrepresented group historically on board, or in the Aurora portion of Central Park, people who are renters, people who live in the affordable housing units. So we say we want that, but actually getting folks to apply for the board from those communities. There's, kind of other demographic groups, but those are kind of, when we look at the makeup of the board, there are definite gaps. So actually doing intentional recruitment and getting folks to apply for those open seats who come from those parts of the community is a challenge. So so I would say those are kind of top two very current things for us right now.
That sounds great. I think that we can actually go through the strategies, because we do touch on those things that you had mentioned. And I think the first thing before we jump into those strategies is as a reminder that these strategies were from working with the RNOs that we've had in the past, but that each RNO is so different and there's no one size fits all solution, and that it should be tailored to your community, your neighborhood. And that it's a long-term commitment. So it's not something that can be done overnight, and it just takes some consistency and time to actually implement. But we can just dive right in.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've already identified like there are some gaps that you want to welcome for perspectives that are representative of renters and different demographics that your RNO represents. So that's the first step. And just would mention here that there are city resources where mapping has already been done or where demographic data is available. So that can be really helpful in getting really clear on like what percentage is our community actually Spanish speaking or other languages? So starting there and having a really good understanding of what your neighborhood actually looks like. You already talked about this, Liz, but really finding creative ways to prioritize space for leadership of different perspectives. So one idea that came up when we were working with La Alma Lincoln Park, because they're right there by Auraria campus, was to always have a board position open for a student from the campus. That could also look like always having a position dedicated to a renter. And in the beginning, it might be that nobody applies for that position, but for people to see, oh, you really value this perspective so much that you're systematizing it, you're putting it in the structure of your RNO, is a way to communicate folks that you value that perspective. Another thing that we talk about, and I think a lot of RNOs do this already, but creating space for RNO meetings to talk about new initiatives and be creative and what you're utilizing this time for. So really making sure that there's alignment with what's truly important for people. So for example, if there's an initiative happening with a community organization and you know that that initiative has a lot of people that you want to be in your RNO, showing up for those meetings or having a representative from your RNO to build those connections. And also just having space to reimagine and co-design your bylaws and your structures. Obviously, you can't do this every single meeting or you would be starting over constantly, but if and when you do have new perspectives, making sure that there's that buy-in and that things are coming from an equitable perspective.
And you mentioned that there's already the survey that's out, and which is great. Having like physical copies at local businesses is a great way to also distribute the information. It's a rec center, a library. You're really utilizing the different places around your neighborhood is a great way to distribute that information.
In some of our other work, we do a lot of community engagement at
Yeah.
Radian. So we partner with other architecture firms and government to work on design projects. And we recently were working on Aleiya Park, and the rec center was super open to having like a big QR code in the front so people see it and it's really visible. So
Yeah.
those
And
public spaces, even schools,
yeah.
where parents are having, and maybe even if it's like bigger than this, if you can get like a poster board so that it's super visible and people are interacting with it.
And this kind of goes into community awareness of RNO, not just having, so really working with your connections that you know. So that's where the community mapping is great. Network mapping is just to know what businesses are out there. Do they know about RNOs? Can they, promote and talk about RNO meetings on their websites? If they have flyers that they can put into their stores, their businesses, that's also a great way to, really reach out. If there's other community groups, volunteer groups that can be involved as well. And community navigators, like Aleiya had mentioned before, they can go door to door, and they are usually bilingual and can speak Spanish. And usually they can get into deeper conversation with that person at the door. And that's when, I think had hired our community navigators and found out that the majority of people that they talked to didn't even know what an RNO is and what they did. And so I think even just getting that exposure to show, if that's a newsletter, for instance, to really get people to know about your RNO. And also providing more opportunities to build relationships outside of an RNO meeting. So block parties, volunteer opportunities, holiday parties, things like that, that are more informal and less intimidating to show up to. And I think something that we've, because Radian, we do a lot of community engagement work, we realized that attending existing community events really is more effective in engaging with community members because a lot of people get community event fatigue. So they get tired of going to different events, and we also get tired of planning those events. And so utilizing the existing resources that you already have is a really great way to get those connections.
So this already came up with translation for both of the RNOs that applied for the grant. They ended up using a significant portion of that budget to make sure there would be interpretation and translation for 12 months for all materials and for all meetings. And so they really wanted to experiment with seeing if we have this as a consistent resource, are we going to get more Spanish speakers, this population that they had really been struggling to attract to the RNO meetings. And we recognize this does take an immense amount of financial resources to sustain. And something we've run into with other RNOs is like, sometimes we have a bilingual volunteer who can translate one flyer for one event, but then if we're not providing it for everything, that could also be challenging as it becomes an accessibility issue. And I'll just mention that when we've been looking at case studies of other cities who have RNOs, that's why we think the city should be providing financial resources to RNOs, or if they're not providing $5,000 to do that, they're providing interpretation and translation as an arm of the city for RNOs. So just want to also mention that for each of these, we do not want everything to just be on volunteer RNO members. We recognize there needs to be this mix of people who really care about their community and want to volunteer, and also the city following through with resources to make that possible.
Oh, go ahead. Did I have questions? I was just wondering, because you mentioned HRCP, so it's Human Rights and Community Partnerships.
Yes,
Is the acronym.
yes.
So are RNOs moving under HRCP instead of Community Planning and Development?
Yes.
And are there, I guess, is that actually already in the 2025 city budget? Okay.
It is. They are opening a new office called the Office of Community Empowerment, right? Neighborhood Empowerment. Our job is so many acronyms, so I apologize, but I believe it's, Neighborhood Empowerment. And the idea is that RNOs will now live under the Office of Neighborhood Empowerment. And something that Radian is pushing for with City Council, we're working with them to make sure that that office is actually co-created with RNOs, because we don't want the city to just create
That was
something,
my question.
change everything.
Is there a timeline for the rollout of this? Like,
We're
it's already
trying to build that. We're actively working on that with Councilman Cashman, Councilman Gutierrez Gonzalez, and Councilman Watson. So they're kind of the most passionate about this work right now, but they also believe that the entire city council really wants to work on this.
Somebody. Okay, it's muted.
Make sure it's not a question. Yes, so we imagine that needing to be at least a year-long process to do it well, and to do it intentionally. And so we're still in conversation with them, but that would include potentially like more liaisons between the city and RNOs, and extending more resources, like providing Zoom licenses for all RNOs, like trying to think about how can they crowdsource all the things that we know RNOs need. But right now, each RNO is like scrambling to get on their own, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, when
We struggled because the city provides or has a Zoom license, but then we ran into problems because it was a shared license. You can only have 2 meetings at the same time. And so like there are at least three
Yes.
RNOs that meet the third Tuesday at 7:00. So
Right.
you run into those. And so we would have problems, and so we just got our own license.
Right.
But I think that's consistently been one of the things, that we've tried, because we were probably one of the last RNOs formed, because within the last 20 years, there haven't been many new ones. So we've struggled with that, so, and it's always been budgetary.
That a lot, and there's Arno's like Chun, is that what it's called? Capital
They have like
Hill,
an operating.
where they're like,
$100
yeah, they're like a full-fledged nonprofit, and so their budget is gonna look really different. But what we found working so far is like $10,000 goes a really long way for most RNOs. And there are other cities that provide that kind of budget every single year. It's part of the city budget, and so yeah, we think there's a lot of potential to implement these policy changes, and it will take time to refine those policy changes, but there's such clear patterns that come up in almost every single conversation that we have.
How do RNOs get connected with the council offices? Do we just need to reach out ourselves and say, hey, we heard you're doing this thing, like,
Yeah,
we've got some thoughts?
yeah, it depends on your council person, right? Some of them care a lot more about this than others, but we found them to be incredibly responsive. And one thing that we don't know that this is guaranteed, but one thing that we have talked about with them is actually having an RNO steering committee for this process to make sure that they're getting feedback while they build. And if that's approved, then obviously we would do a whole recruitment effort to make sure that we're getting all RNOs involved. But in the meantime, if you want to, email your council person and say like, hey, we had this presentation, we know you're working with Radian and other folks at the city, we really want to see this happen, that kind of encouragement and support for that kind of effort is always helpful.
Yeah, and we've had council members show up to the RNO events. And so, they do have some capacity to show up to these things. So even reaching out if you have an event that you have planned and letting them know to attend is a great way to make that connection.
Pivoting, oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, just something that you said during your talk was that the city has maps that'll tell for each neighborhood, like what the language distribution is. Where are those maps?
Yeah, if there's a way to share the link also in the chat, because
Yeah, we can find that. I know that there's just different demographic data available, and that's something that so city council aides are absolute angels. They actually run the city. And so that's even something that if you reach out to your council person, they should have all that data. Like they are the experts on their district. And so we can certainly send links, but I'm just saying that's another resource where city council should be able to provide some of that information.
I use the Piton Foundation maps, like but it's defunct now, like it doesn't.
But there's a city to demography who happens to, isn't
Oh, it's the state demographer.
State.
It's in the neighborhood, yeah.
Did she retire?
She retired,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I also should disclose, I'm a former city council aide.
Oh, that's
So I know
Okay.
it's kind of difficult to find, even like aides will eventually find it, but some of that demographic information is actually not, like, they do have like the GIS like stuff with the mapping, like, and the GIS team is actually really helpful in like getting that stuff, but it's not immediately accessible.
Yeah, I should clarify, like, there's not a set landing page where there's languages for every single community, but I more just meant there has been demographic data done, and so they're trying to find that data to include when you're identifying the gaps for your community.
Yeah, so we usually look at the census just to see, there is that as a baseline to see, what's in your neighborhood. And that's what we use first. And then when we had worked with La Alma Lincoln Park and we developed the community survey to have demographic information in there too. So that way they can choose. But it's something that is optional. I think some people don't want to be filling out that information, but we did try to have it where it was not very invasive, but having that a part of the community survey to also update that demographic information as well.
It's a little tactical, but I like low hanging fruit. So if you have an answer, it'd be like a yay, we got to win. Speaking of this meeting right now, I'm not aware of a technology built into Zoom that would automatically translate as we're speaking or transcribe, but I was just Googling and there's apps that do it, but they're paid. So at least quick Google search. Did you find anything that's like, we could hook it up tomorrow and next meeting we could do it in Spanish?
For in Spanish, I think it also is like Google Translate where they can do that for websites as well. I think,
But like this meeting, the verbal. as I'm
Yeah, so
speaking,
for
someone's
the,
listening,
for
Interpretation.
the ones that we mentioned, that would be live interpretation. So they're actually hiring someone to join the
Yeah.
meeting. I don't know about the app integration, although,
That just might be something.
but
to
I'm
look into, 'cause
sure-
That's a lot cheaper. It's a one-time cost, right?
yes.
It's just, a license versus having
Yeah.
a person that has to be at all the meetings.
yeah, I think the only on to that is that the translation might not be accurate. And there's more nuances, especially when you're talking about more controversial topics or more complicated topics that a person might be explaining it better than a translation might show up to be. So,
Totally agree. Pros and cons. but,
yeah,
First
But-
step.
yeah, I
Baby
think
steps,
it's
kind of thing,
combinations. Mhm.
Because it's that. And it might get a 60% versus very few organizations have $5,000-$10,000 to hire people to do it perfectly, right? So it's kind of for that quick win.
Yeah, our budget's about $2,500 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's something, because I started meeting with the other RNO heads in basically our city council district. I mean, and I think that even having the budget to be able to pay for the website hosting and and our Zoom account and the MailChimp, so that we have a CRM, all of for a couple of the folks that I've been meeting with, those are expenses that are just beyond
Yeah.
what they can do with their RNOs. So, I mean, if there's any opportunity for support, dollars, from the city for RNOs that really don't have a budget, and I mean, that would just be huge, on top of translate, the language access issues.
Yeah, another thing too, is if you have someone who is interested in becoming a translator or interpreter, is even offering training classes. And I think that's something they were talking about, is having free training classes to become an interpreter. And so if you could have someone like that and hiring someone who is bilingual and could take these courses and become the person in, I think that would be ideal. Obviously, it's very hard to find, but that's also an alternative way that you could have the language or translator or interpreter. Yeah, and then I guess, is it okay to keep going forward
Yeah.
or?
We're sorry, we
We're
started.
already on.
We are a little bit past time, but I know we also started a little bit late. So I guess we'll unfortunately have to kind
We'll
of
share the slides, or
Yeah.
yeah, I think we send you the slides if you want to share them out, and then I'll get a copy of the physical books to you, so that you all have it, and it's also online. So this goes specifically to the resource library. So these are just a set of different books, trainings, podcasts that we think are helpful in learning more about equity and how to leverage.
Sorry, it's interesting because we just did, our DEI committee actually did a 4-month book club discussion, not of The Color of Law, but of Just Action, which was the follow-up text by the author. So anyway.
Yeah, and this was part of the Arno Equity Toolkit. And then just wanted to add our information as well. So there's the website that you can access our toolkit online. And also our emails is on the second row there. And we have an Instagram and LinkedIn that we're also updating our information. And we have a newsletter that you can all sign up for just to keep in tabs of what Radian has been doing. And that's a monthly update that gets sent out every month.
Thank you very much. I think, Anne, I just have one logistical thing.
Yeah.
If you can make the Central Park, I accidentally made you the host when you were sharing
Oh,
your screen. So if you can make Central Park United Neighbors the host, and then before
yes.
but I really appreciate the presentation, and we'll kind of circulate the slides and resources for folks.
having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I have, I'll follow up that, just so that before we move on to community partner updates, I do want to just mention, the city council district aid office did reach out to me. And so there is actually, the board presidents for all of the district RNOs are invited to a lunch kind of workshop discussion, where we'll all get together on February 1st. So if board members have topics that they want to make sure that I'm bringing up to like representatives, like I'll send out a reminder email ahead of that, but I just want to make sure that I'm going into that with the input of everybody on. And I'll also ask about the office that's being set up and how, we could participate. So, all right, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So I will, we'll move on to community partner updates. Just share the screen, sorry. And so move on to, our community partner updates. The city council meeting is actually happening tonight because it was delayed from the holiday yesterday. So I'll just do a very quick district date. There's 2 events they wanted to let us know. Tomorrow during the safety committee meeting for city council at 10:30 a.m., there will be a presentation on the next phase of the mayor's All in Mile High program during the safety committee. And so All in Mile High is the kind of new branding of House 1000. And so if folks can tune in, it'll be at 10:30 a.m. On channel 8. So I always just Google like Denver channel 8 and link to it, but I can also share the link that's on the screen into the chat. I'll also include that. So the archived video of that meeting is always publicly available. So I'll be including that in our email newsletter that's going out next Monday. And then there is a District 8 Town Hall happening on February 8th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. I believe that's a Saturday. It will likely be at DSST Conservatory Green. They'll confirm that. And the focus are community ideas for the 2026 budget. And it's a kickoff for the District 8 community panels for those who are interested in participating in them. I think Heather, you participated in it. I think Amy with Safe Streets also did, a couple of other folks. And so last year's community panel secured $485,000 for district projects. So encourage folks, go to the town hall on February 8th if you're interested. All right, and then we can move to Denver Police District 5. I believe Lieutenant Hines is on the phone or on the Zoom.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me tonight. I hope everybody's having a good start to the new year. To kind of kick us off as we go into the new year, I kind of wanted to recap where we ended up with crime here in District 5 for 2024. So looking at areas where we're having challenges, as I've kind of mentioned at meetings throughout the last year, larceny has become a big issue, particularly in precinct 511, which is Central Park neighborhood north of I-70. But really, this is an issue that's been concentrated at both of the major shopping areas, up at the shops at Northfield and then down at the Quebec Square area in precinct 512. So unfortunately for 2024, we saw a 90% increase in larceny cases in precinct 511. In precinct 512, it wasn't as dramatic. It was more about 17% increase. But I think that's partially attributable to the fact that 2 of the major anchor stores over there, Walmart and Home Depot, both added off-duty Denver police officers to work there to try to suppress some of the shoplifting we're seeing. Now, although that was a big challenge for us in 2024 and something we continue to work on as we move into 2025, I do want to point to a brighter spot for us, which is that we've seen a significant decrease in auto theft and theft from motor vehicle, both in precinct 511 and 512. For any of you who have listened to me speak for any length of time at this or other meetings, you may remember that Denver had a really unfortunate distinction of having the highest per capita auto theft rate in the nation at one point about a year and a half ago. And that is something we certainly weren't proud of and we're trying to work on fixing. So in precinct 511, we saw a 37% decrease in auto theft. In precinct 512, we saw a 48% decrease. And we saw a corresponding decrease in theft from motor vehicle cases as well. Those kind of track pretty similar to each other. Our violent crime rates continue to track about as they always have, representing 10 to 13% of our total crime in these precincts, respectively. But as we move through 2025, we're going to be working on some of these quality of life crimes. One thing I did want to pass along is that we, as a department, hit some of our goals that we had with the mayor's office for reducing crime. We achieved a 14 to 15% citywide decrease in violent gun crimes, which is something we're really glad to see heading in the right direction. We've also increased customer satisfaction rate by 85% for the department. We attain that data through spider surveys that we send out to folks who have had police involvement, who've called us for 911 calls and things of that nature. And we've been working on trying to make sure that we're improving our ability to work with the community. And we wanted to come up with some measurable data to figure out if the community feels that we are better serving their needs as we respond to those 911 calls. So 85% increase for 2024 is certainly a move in the right direction. As we move into 2025 and try to work towards making Denver one of the 10 safest cities in the nation, one of the things we want to do is reduce the fear of crime. So we'll be looking at ways of putting our resources into areas and problems where we're seeing a lot of community concern, because we want to make sure people are feeling safe in the neighborhoods where they live, work, shop, and things of that nature. We're also working on a lot of these quality of life crimes that are occurring. For example, the larceny rate is something that's really plagued us up at Northfield Mall, as I mentioned. So we've been putting a lot of focus up there, working with our business watch partners to try to come up with strategies to reduce that. We've also got some grant money available we'll be using to do a combination of visible and invisible operations up there. What I mean is some operations will involve marked Denver police vehicles and visible patrol by our officers to try to deter crime, whereas some of the other operations will be undercover operations where we're actually trying to catch people who are involved in committing these crimes. We've seen everything from individuals involved in shoplifting of random items to individuals who will go in and take thousands of dollars worth of merchandise from various stores. And we've also seen some organized groups that are really plaguing our retail partners in the area. Our detectives recently opened a COCA case. For those of you who aren't familiar with COCA, it's a Colorado level organized crime control act, very similar in scope to what RICO does on the federal level, but it's a state level version of RICO essentially. And we recently opened a case against an organized group that was stealing tens of thousands of dollars worth of vacuums from stores throughout the metro area. So we were able to put indictments down on a number of individuals related to that event. So that's just kind of a quick overview of what we're seeing in terms of trends, good and bad, and some of the ways that we're going to address that. I want to leave time here if anybody has any questions. I also have Community Resource Officer Technician Danae Ferenz on the call tonight. I don't know if she had anything to add for upcoming events for us. Danae, are you on tonight? Well, perhaps Danae is not with us tonight, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those before we move on.
Lieutenant,
Just have-
I'm on Zoom. I just had a question. You mentioned larcenies and auto thefts and violence crime. What about break-ins and burglaries?
So not too bad overall on those. Burglaries down 3% in the one precinct, up 6% in the other precinct. But compared to what we were seeing a few years ago, it's really improved on burglaries. I attribute that a lot to the fact that folks have been doing a better job of securing their garages. As simple as that sounds, that was the driver of about 80% of our burglaries in the Central Park neighborhood were just open garage doors because somebody'd walk by, see a garage door open, grab a couple items, take off, and took them just a few seconds to get in. I think we've made some strides on that. I've certainly beat that dead horse. I know some people are tired of hearing me say close your garage doors, but I think we've made some strides on that as a community. So we've seen some improvement in that. Naturally, as we transition in a couple months to the warmer weather, we'll be watching that again because nobody's as likely to leave their garage open when it's -5 out. So that seems to be more of a summer problem. But yeah, right now, not too bad on burglaries compared to what we've seen historically. And thank you for the question.
My
Lieutenant,
apologies. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself quick enough.
There's Technician Friends.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. The only update I have is next month's commanders meeting. As you all know, it's on the third Thursday. So February 20th, 6 p.m., both in person and virtual. And we'll be sending out that information as we get closer.
Thank you, Danae.
um,
And did I
I
hear
was
another
just
question?
wondering, sorry, are we muted, Jack, or no?
You're
Okay,
good, I
sorry,
hear you.
this is Liz, Lieutenant Hines. I was just wondering, was there a commanders meeting last week?
There was a commanders meeting, last Thursday. Did you guys not receive?
Slide deck? Yeah, we got the invitation. I was just wondering, for those who weren't able to attend, is there a slide deck from that meeting that we could share with the community?
Yeah, I think we could get that over to you. Danae, you have access to that still, right?
Yeah, as long as we're good to share that, I can send that out to people.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. I'll send you my email address. But that'd be great. We'll just kind of share it in the community email that goes out on Monday.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions?
Well, just with the goal of being among the top 10, hi, Lieutenant Hines, it's Amanda.
Hi, Amanda,
Among
how
the
are
top
you?
10. Okay, thanks. Whose ranking of cities is the target for being among the top 10?
You know, that is a great question, Amanda, and one that I am not surprised that a statistician like you is asking me. However, I don't actually know which list we're using to derive that number. From my point of view, I'm doing everything I can to make the community as safe as possible. And on the broader list, every now and again, somebody comes out and tells me if we did it or didn't. So I can try to find out more on that, but I'm not actually sure whose list we're using on that. But that's a great question, honestly. Because safety is measured in a number of different ways. So
Good. Thank you to you and your team.
hey, thank you very much for having us tonight.
Thanks for the update. I'll share, well, actually, I don't need to share my screen at the moment, I guess. I guess we have Diane from the MCA.
Hello.
So you're up.
Well, good news is we'll be short because it's the short kind of time for us. So we did have a increase in dues for all those starting this month. So that covers a variety of different things that we're playing catch up on and we have forthcoming, and a lot of new park space that we're taking on. So that's a quick snapshot, but if you want more detail, just give us a call. We can definitely provide more detail on that.
And I want to remind everyone is that we will plow your alley if there is more than 6 inches of snow. Less than 6 inches of snow, the alley is not getting plowed. That aligns with when the city is going to plow the street in front of your house. I had a lot of people call me today wondering when we were going to plow their alleys. We got 3 inches of snow yesterday, which is, by the way I do math, less than 6. And then what we will do is plow sidewalks that abut parks. So not the sidewalk in front of your house, you have to plow that. But if it's a sidewalk that is in a park or through a park, we will take care of those, no matter how much snow we get.
And for anybody who's not been tracking, could you provide an update on the mailboxes and any coordination with the city? And also, any other vandalism that's been happening?
We have had a lot of vandalism with our CBUs, the mailbox space, and
I think we
you can
understand.
meet them out there.
Yeah, we understand that there was a theft of some sort of postal carrier's keys. And based on that theft, we suspect that the same individual has been able to gain access to the, we call them cluster box units. They're the mailbox pedestals that you see throughout the neighborhood. Either this individual or a group of individuals, I don't know the specifics there. Maybe our friends at the police department can provide better, have been gaining access to the mailboxes, and in some instances have been breaking those mailboxes in the process. If your mail gets stolen, that's a law enforcement issue, so make sure to call the police, report that. I know the Postal Service has people who specialize in nothing but. If your mailbox gets broken, and when I say broken, I mean the mailbox itself is broken, that is something that we'll fix if you let us know about it. That's another thing.
Jack, if I could.
Yeah, please. I was about
Sorry
to
to
ask you
interrupt you
to.
there. Yeah.
No, I was about to ask you.
Yeah, we are aware of that issue going on right now. Now, mail theft does fall under the U.S. Postal Service. So, but we had an operation going with a few of our guys the other day, working with the U.S. postal inspectors and the post office, trying to address that issue. I think they have some leads on some of the individuals that are involved in that. But you're right, there was an issue of either. Sometimes what they see is that the arrow keys, as they call them, that the postal carriers carry get stolen. Those are extremely valuable to crooks because they can open, virtually any postal box in a region, which, as you can imagine, can facilitate a lot of mail theft. But additionally, we sometimes see those keys made, forged keys made. But the postal inspectors were working with our detectives the other day on that particular issue. So I think they're gaining some ground on it, but I'm not sure that it's been solved just yet.
So basically, if it is the box has been totally vandalized or broken into, or your mail is stolen, you need to contact the United States Postal Service. They then work with law enforcement on finding out who's doing that and tracking that down. If your key is not working or it's broken in your unit box, you can call the MCA and we can help you with that. But the bigger picture is with the Postal Service. So.
On like the 2nd or the 3rd of January, I went for a run and saw 3 open mailboxes, and then spoke to my mail carrier later in the day, and he said that there were about 5 or 6 that had been opened around like 35th Avenue and Alton, like in terms of cross streets. I called the postal inspector and I also called the police, and the person I spoke to at the police department did not want to take a report because my specific box was not the one broken into. They were like, we need to have somebody who's actually impacted by this to call us. And so Lieutenant Hines, if there's any way that the department could sort of work with the community to just accept the information that a crime has occurred, even if it's not a person who's directly impacted by that crime, I think that could probably help move things along a bit. I don't know, it just seems like you would want the documentation of it, even if it's not a person whose specific box was.
Because you can report that house is on fire and it's
Yeah.
not your house. So that seems like.
Tell me when your house catches on fire.
Well, and certainly, we always appreciate getting the information. One of the reasons we can't always take a report when we don't have the actual victim involved is it doesn't always give us the circumstances. Somebody could tell us, oh yeah, I left my box open earlier, or I was trying to fix a broken key in there and broke it open, or things of that nature. I mean, that might be a silly example depending on what it looked like when you saw it, but typically we aren't able to take third-party complaints, third-party reports, and there's other reasons for that too. We've had issues of, like, say, domestic violence come up where somebody reports their ex's car stolen and things of that nature, just to, get their car flagged and get them arrested or pulled over and things of that nature. But and then again, typically when we're dealing with break-ins to the mailboxes, we'll be getting the postal inspectors involved ourselves as well. So please don't hesitate to call us. Sometimes, depending on the circumstances, we may not be able to take the report at the time, but the information never hurts to get, because it's information we can sometimes pass along to folks who can do something about it.
And Amanda, give us a holler and we will,
I'll go close the box.
yeah.
It's a trick I've picked up. So if you see the box.
Yeah, go ahead and give us a call for just to report it. We can't do anything to solve the issue, but we can get it closed. We can at least alert law enforcement and the postal service. We do have a contact that we can reach over there. Yeah. Anything else? We're just getting ready for our upcoming season. Get going. Watching it.
Great. Looks like we're all set with the MCA. Thank you. So I think we have Daria from the Sam Gary branch.
Hi, friends. Hello, everyone. I have a ton of updates for you, but they won't take long. Don't worry. So, huge reminder, Winter of Reading, that is underway. That's our adult reading challenge, reading and different activities. So this year is the 10th anniversary, and the board is in the form of a bingo board, which is super fun. You complete 5 activities in a row, horizontally, vertically, diagonally, and then you get a bag, which is super sweet, or a mug that looks like that. Obviously, I don't have a mug because I had to choose one prize. You get a choice as well. And at Sam Gary, we also have a ton of fantastic programs for this one, including tomorrow, we have a page to screen program series, like installment. This is one that explores the relationship between the book, Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, and its film adaptation. So we already had the book discussion last week. Tomorrow we are screening the movie and holding a discussion, so you should definitely swing by. That'll be tomorrow at 5:30. Should be a great time. And then next week on Wednesday, the 29th, we're going to kind of celebrate the combined experience of the two. We're going to play some bingo that's themed by this story. We're going to paint some watercolor postcards. There'll be treats in a photo area. It will be great, great fun. We will also have a genre book bingo. That would be on Sunday, the 26th, I think 2 to 4 in the afternoon. That one is hilarious. We're going to be revisiting like our favorites and some bestsellers, but also discovering some new books, hopefully. There'll be 3 separate games. So the boards are going to be made up of either romance, fantasy and sci-fi, or thriller and horror books. And there'll be some bookish prizes. We'll, of course, have some warm beverages. So you guys should swing by for that one. Now, the family story time that we have on Saturdays for all ages, that is getting pushed back 15 minutes. So now that's going to start at 10:30. We're noticing that folks need a little bit more time to get here on the weekends. So we're accommodating for that. So family story time for all ages, 10:30 on Saturdays. And there are a couple of small changes for our after school clubs. We started a tween game club. That's on every 3rd Thursdays. every third Thursday, and that's for tweens, so ages 9 through 13. There's board games and video games. We're trying to keep it cute. It's mostly like sports, Wii games, and dance games and things like that, and lots of board games. And then the Lego Club that we have on fourth Tuesday, that's for kids now. That's going to be for ages 5 through 12. And for February, real quick, we have a program where a Black history is going to come to life in our community room. We will have an acclaimed scholar and actor, Becky Stone, portray Harriet Tubman to speak about her life and answer questions in character. So everyone is welcome. This is for all ages and the whole family, and it's a fantastic program. Be sure not to miss that one. And lastly, library is going to be closed on Monday, February 17th. That would be in observance of President's Day. Are there any questions?
Well done. I think we're good. Thank you, Daria. Great. And then, well, we also just have a quick update from Bluff Lake Nature Center. Layla, I'll share the screen since you have a graphic you sent.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So we have been moving forward with our campus improvements project, going through the permitting process that, as many of you probably know, is a very slow and arduous one, but we are almost there. For the main campus improvements, which will be breaking ground, we expect in probably like March to April. Again, we're just kind of waiting on the last check boxes for permitting. But in the meantime, in order to prepare for that, we are going to be completing work on this new entrance that has been a really something that like a lot of the community has been asking for a long, long time. And this really was just the perfect time for us to be able to do it. It's in the northwest corner of Bluff Lake, across from Florence Way, and Havana. So it's where, Sand Creek Regional Greenway goes underneath Havana. So it's an ideal place for an entrance. And we have had a lot of folks tell us that they do enter that way anyway, which is not great for wildlife. So that really made this a high priority for us. And this is a smaller permitting process, but we're just kind of waiting to get that last go ahead from the city, and we'll be expecting to open that February, should be done. It'll be a very quick project as soon as it breaks ground, hopefully in the next few weeks. So this will be a permanent entrance, but we really wanted to get it done before the campus improvements project begin, because that will be that campus improvements project, the main part, which is going to be where the parking lot is now, means that that entrance will be inaccessible for the duration of the project. So just kind of keep your eyes open for that. We're really excited that we finally get to have this project come to fruition, because like I said, a lot of people like to access that point. We have a lot of folks in the area of the neighborhood who like to get to Bluff Lake that way. And again, it's a really great access point for Sand Creek Greenway. And the project, like the main overarching project, we've raised just over 6.4 million of our 8.5 million goal. And right now we're really focusing on a goal of 1,000 donors from our community. We've had a few lead donors that have really been pushing for that, and we think that'll be a really cool challenge if we unlock that. And we've had 250, just over 250 donors sign on. So we're like a quarter of the way there. But yeah, definitely stay tuned for all of the like when the site will be closing in the main area, but the remainder of the site like will stay open. It'll just be the parking lot and that entrance that will be closed. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I can drop my info in the chat, and I'm also happy to answer any questions now too. Cool. I'll I'll drop my email in the chat in case anyone has any follow-up questions, because I know this is a pretty big project that will change people's accessing of Bluff Lake for a little while.
In the chat, the link for the donations also.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you for that.
actually, I'm sorry, I'm giving you lots of tasks. If you could also email both of those things, I'll make sure that they make it into the newsletter on Monday as well.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. That is it for our community partner updates. I don't know, do folks want to kind of push ahead to the board hour since we're a little bit behind? And then if folks do need to stand up and move around a little bit, obviously feel free, but I think let's kind of move on to the next part of the agenda. We'll just do, I think since the beginning of the year, and we really haven't had too many committee meetings, we can do some quick committee report outs. So we'll start with education, Carol.
Yeah, I'm gonna do education and safe streets. I'm Carol Hutter and I'm on board and I'm the chair of the education committee and co-chair of safe streets. We're gonna resume education committee meetings in February. I'd like to change the day and the time, so I'm working on that. And contacting the members as a whole, but then individually too, to talk about rethinking our purpose and our actions. The role of members other than attending meetings, making specific contributions, being a point of contact, that sort of thing. Since the last meeting, a couple of months ago, I've been meeting with various organizations and some school people. I'm meeting tomorrow with the Willow Elementary PTA representatives. I've been checking to see if Michelle Quattlebaum is going to be running again for board. I don't know, and I haven't heard anything about it, and I haven't heard of anybody who would challenge her. I wanted to mention, and this overlaps with Safe Streets, a gentleman who is an MCA delegate, Joe Landon, has took it upon himself because he's very worried about the Paul Sandoval campus at lunchtime when students are barreling across 56th.
I just experienced that last week.
Yeah, everybody's experienced it. I mean, I'm sure we can all speak to that. So he and Heather is sort of representing Willow, so pitch in here whenever. And so the last Park Creek Metropolitan District meeting, he did a presentation. He had quite a lot of visuals that were horrifying. And we had the Northfield principal, and then I don't recall the gentleman, what his position was. He's the principal in training or something like that. And then the principal from Inspire, and then Heather was there representing Willow. And I sat in, I was asked to sit in as a member of the committee to listen to his presentation and to really make a plea to PCMD about how can you help us in terms of setting up some kind of strategic ways to mitigate this problem. So what happened was Amy, who is co-chair, Amy Campbell, and is an excellent writer, did a wonderful summary and really a letter of support. And then she documented our efforts with Dottie for over a very long period in terms of trying to mitigate dangerous scenarios in Central Park so that students and adults can safely navigate various routes to school. So that is, he's got our documentation, and the next meeting is this Thursday over at here in the Cube as a follow-up. And so I'm going to attend just to see what people have to say, but I'll keep you all posted about that. And then Safe Streets is going to meet Wednesday, the 5th of February at 3 o'clock. I thought it was, yeah,
It's the fourth Thursday,
20th.
because the first day of the year was on a Wednesday, like what's the third and the fourth, like is funky toward the end of the week.
In case you weren't doing anything on Thursday.
Say more about what you mean about this. And I know about the parking and just.
Now we're talking about kids at lunchtime.
So there's
Okay, well,
56,
Well,
like
they're
crossing 56,
darting
like
across
not at an
56.
intersection. Just going straight across 56 in the middle of the road while cars are like coming down. It's incredible. It's terrifying to be a driver,
Yeah.
like during that time when you're going down 56.
They are flooding. They are just going in individually. They're going in groups. And part of the problem is that there isn't anybody that's a staff member that can be out there regulating this or
And even if they
overseeing it.
were,
Yeah,
I don't think-
and also, I mean, it's like a throughway, like it's not a residential street.
No.
that they're crossing.
I don't know. As far as I know, that's true. Sounds like we talked about. That's a good.
How did the turn signal like for the In-N-Out burger work? Like
Yeah.
is that,
That was, everything is complicated and complex than it
Yeah.
needs to be. But when the In-N-Out Burger approached the city and said, we want a right-in turn into this thing that we're building. And the city said, you can't have one. We're not breaking that median. And then the In-N-Out Burger came back and said, but what if we built it? And the city said, we'll let you build something, but not what you want. And now we have what we have. And so, Park Creek asked the MCA to study that particular area. We completed a report. I'll share it with the board. It's gone to the Park Creek now. There's very little that Park Creek can do, given that they don't own that property. The streets have been turned over. There's a median that runs down the middle of the 56th. I think the best thing we could do was down 56th and down Central Park Boulevard. I think the best we could do is put a fence down the middle of it and force students to use crosswalks. Because there'd be a fence in the way. But that is.
Why though?
Put a fence on the campus, not in the median.
No, because I think they just go around it and then they be
Then you get
walking on
kids
the road.
trapped on that fence.
Why would that, I mean, it's,
I just think it's possible to put a crosswalk in there. It doesn't really solve the problem. I mean, it's just gonna add more time, and I think kids will still jaywalk across there. I don't think it's that big of a deal to put in a more substantial crosswalk and make it, they talked about, there's no signs that say you're in a school zone. And it's already 40 miles an hour, but people are doing at least 50 most of the time.
yeah.
And
like don't have
there's no
traffic.
incentive to say, hey, like, they're human beings on foot.
So, I mean, and Jack,
Even at the intersection,
Engineering solution, right, those things would have to come from our friends at the city.
Yeah,
The
and
engineering solution that Park Creek could do is what they have control over, which are the two medians. So the recommendation the MCA has made to the district and is in their board packet for this week is could run a fence down the middle of it. But that's the only thing that you, Park Creek, could do. We also share Matt's reservations that we don't think that would be a good idea, but that is an alternative that we were asked to assess and present.
I think that it doesn't hurt to present it to Park Creek, and because there's what Park Creek can actually do, and then there's the soft power of who they can talk to as well. And so who knows, but I think making like this like something to, anyway, I'm curious to see how the discussion goes. at the
Heather's
meeting.
point, like a fence on the campus,
Yeah,
that would be like Northfield and DSST sharing the cost of that.
yeah, it's like the Sandoval, so
That'd be,
that would be DPS,
Yes.
DPS.
yeah.
Well, I think the person who's really driving this wants an overpass. And
That ain't,
I don't think that's ever gonna
That's-
happen, but we can ask for a fence. Yeah.
that ain't gonna happen. We priced an overpass, it would be about $100
The
million.
kids and their bad behavior is being reported with the overpass. You know what I mean? I get where they're coming from. but I don't know.
use the overpass.
Literally like,
No, and that's
100
lots of
feet
other
over.
dangers involved with an overpass.
That's,
it's not,
I think,
it's a crosswalk.
like, like in front of Cherry Creek Mall, there's like a crosswalk that's like half a block wide. And it's really short to get across the street. And then the median is wide, so if you didn't make it all the way across, you have room to stand there and wait. They could do that at that intersection and just, the intersection basically is like 50 feet long. And you just, like, cars are gonna be inconvenienced, and that's part of the problem, is that, Dottie's just like, well, how fast can a car get down 56th Ave? And it's not that, it's how safely can a person cross the street here? And that's what they need to focus on. And you could expand the median a little bit to make it, again, less distance, but even like going from one edge to the median is like 60 feet. So, it's just way too far for what is being used, what's being done up there, just how people use the area. I don't think a fence is gonna solve the problem.
I think there were a number of other things that were included that Inspire campus noted and Willow campus that may be within reach for PCMT to do. Certainly have asked every other
District owns-
entity, but
The district owns the streets outright surrounding Inspire Elementary School, and those have not been transitioned to
Yeah.
the city for maintenance.
And
or work.
there's-
So
yeah.
we
Clear
did conduct a new traffic impact study for that area. The last one is from 2016. And so if we're going to propose a modification to a traffic engineering plan, a new traffic impact study would have to be completed. Those are expensive. But
Or, I guess, I mean, I know that Amy had emailed you about this also, but like, where's the kind of intersection, so to speak, between PCMD and like, you know, the city's Safe Routes to School program? Like, it seems like this
somebody went there,
should
they
be,
give me a call, but the city doesn't return our calls. The city hates nothing more than us telling them what they should do. I mean, I've been hung up on by city engineers when I've proposed solutions.
but it feels like this would be in their purview, other than kind of like the street ownership thing, but like that, because it's specifically around how kids get to and from their schools. So
Well,
anyway,
I'll tell you that, the MCA's job is to manage the Park Creek Metropolitan District. And the district has the ability to improve, repair its property. And then ask the city really nicely to do the same things on their properties, and the city says that's nice anytime a recommendation is made to them.
I'll go back. There was precedent years ago. Where they switched.
it was 26, like
Central.
all Central Park Boulevard, right?
And those streets had been transitioned to the city, and they blocked off 26th and moved the break to 28th. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That
No,
there
I
is a precedence that's 20 years old.
And the city would have to be the one to initiate that process. I mean,
Well,
But you-
like, what are the magic words? Like,
If Park Creek owns,
incentives.
Park Creek doesn't own the median. The city owns the median.
Yeah,
It's the
it's,
person,
I mean,
and Park Creek
there's,
is contractually obligated to maintain it.
I mean, I hope you guys don't mind that we're like, I appreciate this conversation, like, just like, and I also know that for Carol and Amy and Heather, probably as a parent, like, it's like banging your head against a wall. Like, I know that.
Cause you ask
so,
everybody and everybody says it's not their responsibility.
Like, it's a
It's just like pointing around the room.
Yep.
And so I think maybe PCMD doesn't do anything, but people that are walking that road every day feel like they have to at least ask everybody.
No, I think.
Yeah, I'll say that I think that there is a demonstrated need to resolve the issue, and I do think the district would be willing to foot some of the bill associated with the resolution to
Yeah.
that problem. It's just if I go and I start building something in a city street, a city inspector is gonna show up and tell me to bugger off, don't touch my street. And so until we can get the city to acknowledge that there's a problem that needs to be solved, I think that the district would be willing to both foot the bill and conduct the construction. It would just need to have the city's blessing, and that's a project.
Pedestrian crossing at Beeler Street where there is a thick median, something that that could be worked into it. I'm looking at an aerial map of that area.
So at Beeler Street the only crossing is at 56th and CPB, so you're talking to the east on.
That is like where they cross around Beeler is like where
Yeah,
they're.
they cross,
like-
but that's where what it subs out of the parking lot there.
Yeah, Beeler Street intersects 56th, and it's where that Taco Bell is.
There was already a crosswalk approved to be there, right? Of flashing push button thing, but it's just,
But it hasn't
it
happened.
hasn't happened. Like it's approved to be there.
Oh.
It's just not
Yeah,
there.
is that-
But there, I guess it's approved to be there, but is there any money for it? Or any
That's what the
staff
answer,
for the
that's what the
money?
response.
Like,
unknown.
It's always like those,
That's. like-
because they don't
That's the answer.
walk like, it's like,
Oh, I know, but like.
they don't,
It's our.
like they're walking on one leg.
Should we potentially, as the RNO, send a letter to Chantel?
Absolutely. I think that, or just like, certainly like with the the February 8th town hall coming up, and it's gonna be
that
on
that
that campus, like,
Ah.
that, I plan on attending, and anyway, if other folks would, but I think that, yeah, we can, I mean, I think they're also, that office is also aware of, is pretty aware of the, well, at least the parking issues. I don't know if we've really discussed like the kind of pedestrian safety, as
We're
much.
cracking down on parking. I wrote 7 $400 parking tickets today, so.
Wow.
Telling my daughter that she's gonna get ticketed, and she's like, nobody's getting ticketed. Mom."
Well, I find things wrong with the way you're parked so that I can make that price go up.
Remind me not to.
It's by the DSST and Northfield campus. Oh,
Have a pass.
oh, okay.
I always.
I feel like we
Good, yeah.
need to have a separate agenda.
Yeah.
Just to talk about
Yes.
like these issues, but this is really helpful. I don't know, do we want to kind of move this, like, I don't know, how do you wanna like
What?
continue this discussion, or will you guys go to the PCMD meeting?
I'm gonna stop in on Thursday morning.
Okay, and then I think, I plan on attending, well, I'm gonna be at the February 1st RNO, kind of summit, I guess, for District 8 RNOs. And so I will definitely bring
Yeah.
this issue, just the amount of time we've spent discussing it, like, it just this meeting, not counting all of the other times, like, it's come up, and then over emails. So that's kind of a top issue, that I was going to bring up, and then we can also, you know, like, figure out like what has come from the PCMD meeting and then bring that to the February 8th town hall. But it feels like what you're describing, Heather, is really hot. It's like this hot potato that like the different agencies, particularly Dottie, like just doesn't wanna like touch or explain with clarity. Like, it's like, if it's been approved, is the barrier that there's no money in the budget for that? Or is there no money for the staff because they're understaffed and they're not hiring new staff in this budget year? Like, that there's nobody to actually like carry that project. So
We'll see where
like
it
just
is on
getting
the roadmap.
clarity on that.
If
What?
it's approved, we should be able to see where it is on the roadmap.
Oh, you should.
Well, it's the same
Like,
thing
I'm
as
kind
the
of
Central
corporate,
Park
I'm sure
and
the city
MLK
is.
intersection.
It's the same,
There's
yeah, no,
people that,
it's,
oh, no, we have funds for that, but we just don't have anybody. to pay
that was
for it."
bond,
Yeah.
that was bond money from
Yeah,
5 years ago.
So it's just,
So,
it's a crock of crap. We need to hold Dottie accountable, not just let him hang up the phone.
yeah.
I know, but, or I guess maybe through the council office or something like
Yeah.
that, and have, you know, the council
Pitchforks,
pressure.
pitchforks,
But I mean, you know,
torches.
we pay a lot of taxes over here, like, let's get some people on these projects. And you can't just sort of say like,
Well,
oh,
only half of it goes to the city. The other,
Only half.
Yeah.
I got third.
we still pay a lot of city taxes too.
I'm teasing.
It's,
So-
I get the rest.
Are you gonna report out with the?
yeah, so, oh, sorry, yeah, let's, I think we do kind of need to, cause I want to get everybody out of here, at 8:30, if not a little bit earlier. DEI, very easy, for the committee. I think Mendel, I believe, is not on the call tonight.
I'm on the call.
But just, oh, you are, okay, Mendel.
Yeah, I'm
Go
here.
ahead.
I just wanted to say, I was reserving my comment for the mic. So I do think it's a good idea to reach out to Chantel as a RNO and give her a letter just to let us know, let her know, because she is our point of contact. But as far as DEI, we're gonna meet again for our next meeting will be next week, exactly a week from today on the 28th. And we will just kind of regroup and decide which direction we want to go in for the coming year.
Yeah, and I think, Mendel, we can, share out the presentation and the slide deck from our guest speakers tonight. Cause I think some of what's in the RNO equity toolkit probably can guide what the DEI committee wants to focus on. Whether that's kind of getting the demographic information to or like doing some homework or getting involved in whatever the city is working on for RNOs, that they're gonna be rolling out over the next year. But I think that presentation tonight gave me a lot of things to think about for that committee. Health and safety?
Yeah, we still need to establish a regular meeting cadence, but I do have a few updates of just some like meetings and stuff that I've been to. So Keisha Sarpong from the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Board is planning to come to our March meeting. So she'll give community updates about her work there. She's committed to that. The Good Neighbor Committee meeting for the All in Mile High sites. We met with the mayor in December. He mentioned that there will be no new sites in the Quebec corridor in 2025 or on the east side of the city. And then they are using the Best Western as a walk-up, the former Best Western as a walk-up cold activation shelter. I don't think they're using the DoubleTree. Are they?
I heard it. I heard it on
Are
the
they-
news that they.
Are they? Okay,
They
yeah.
were for this.
I think that's as like a last
I think,
line.
yeah,
is-
it's like, I think when everything else is pretty much at capacity, then that's, but I think in that meeting, or was it in the email follow-ups, like clarifying, like making sure that when it is activated as a cold weather shelter, it's not reducing the capacity and staffing for the regular sheltering, that it's a completely different team is kind of staffing, and kind of managing the cold weather shelter so that nothing is taken away from the regular shelter operations.
Yes, that's right, completely separate. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is I went to an event on Sunday, and then right before this meeting, there was a TOCA Colorado Transforming Our Community Alliance meeting that I went to that Chief Thomas spoke at. He was also on the panel, and both times he had mentioned that his instruction of the Denver Police Department is to not enforce federal immigration laws and will not cooperate with ICE. So just thought I would mention that as well.
The mayor of Chicago was interviewed on CPR NPR today, and he referenced Denver
Yeah,
and Atlanta,
wow.
and said the very same thing, that the police department is not
Yeah.
part of that.
So, yeah, so I thought that was helpful to hear from the top.
And I wanted to add that David is now a delegate along with me with INC.
So since we have two spots, David wanted to do, so thank you for stepping.
Go you, more meeting.
I was gonna say, thank you both. I think for the update for health and safety, since you are looking for a regular meeting time and cadence, I don't know if it, like, when we send out the email on Monday, if there's like a doodle poll or something like that that you wanna just like for, so that you can gauge like how many folks who received the email might be interested in that, and then just so that you have a sense of like what's best, where, how to schedule it best. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we're good with committees. We'll move on to the treasurer's report.
Not much of an update. I think everybody knows that we got the $700 donation. I have not seen the check, but I would tell you that my mailboxes were broken into.
Oh, no.
But I do have, and I think I shared it with everybody, I do have informed delivery. I have not seen the check come in the informed
Okay.
delivery. But if you've used informed delivery for a long period of time, it's not always 100% accurate. So if we don't have it by the February 1st meeting,
Yeah.
you might just ask.
Yeah, I'll just check with.
And I will send out an email when we get it. But so that is not in the current reserve balance.
Okay,
So that would put us up at like $9,500. So we're from a budget perspective, and Jack's here, but Diane's not. I jokingly said our budget's about $2,500, give or take, but we do get money from MCA every year, and that's part of the budget. That's part of it. Our budget's a little higher than $2,500, but
Yeah.
not a whole lot higher.
yeah. Yeah. And then also we have, I want to update the spreadsheet that I was, like the budget tracker spreadsheet I was doing, because there's a few things that have been paid out for the website. And you know, what was approved for the joint RNO meeting. And then also we did not buy the software for the surveys. We're using Google Forms, which is free. So
But that's something we need to think about and start probably researching now of if we're gonna talk about a dual language, is there a survey package that we could use that would do it?
Yeah,
I don't think there is. I mean, my experience and
yeah.
I think your comment about Zoom has the AI companion that you could potentially set something in the AI companion to put the notes in Spanish also. And I'm assuming it would, I don't know how to do it, but if, Zoom's got that AI companion now that if you turn it on, it actually does a transcript. And I'm assuming
Your language.
you might be able to set your language and get to the translation through AI.
Yeah.
I can imagine it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
I just have-
As
But again, the problem that they brought up is that Google Translate and AI is not gonna always be 100% accurate.
It's so much better than it used to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's,
Yeah.
but at least to me, it shows that we are attempting, given that we
Yeah.
don't have a lot of resources, we are trying to be more inclusive. That's step one, right? Recognition that we're not, and then trying to do something.
Well, for the survey, I mean, yeah, I think that like having live translation for reading is a difficult step. Translating a survey and reproducing it in Spanish in Google Forms is extremely like there's I know the organization I know that does both translations and interpretation is the Community Language Co-op, and they have kind of like a per word translation. I've used them for like things that I've done for work, and they're great. And so it's for that, it's just a matter, I think, of having it and then having enough time for it to get translated, and then making sure being able to do all of the checks, like to make sure that it works, say, like both versions of it are the same. So,
Answers.
yeah, but yeah, I think we'll need to figure out like how we.
The software that we used for work just this year merged languages. So that
Okay.
if you have a survey that's fielded in English and Spanish and Arabic,
unique.
on the back end, it has
wow.
all three, but then when you get the results, it just compiles them for you.
I mean, I don't think, if you order the questions in the same way, you should be able to tie a unique identification to it and translate it. If I stared at a spreadsheet for long enough,
Well, that's the
feel like I could get it
Yeah.
there.
Sure, yes, I've done that for many years, but I'm saying this year, it's being done for me.
Well,
Great.
look at that.
Well, then but there is also the translation of like on the back end of any of the open-ended kind
Questions.
of response questions. And they're minimal this year. Lots of people want to write about intersections, so,
Yeah.
so,
Sure.
but there it would be, I think, like to just have some budget to translate that also on the back end.
Yeah.
But
Let's see.
we get like,
I was gonna say city budget to translate things or to fix my crosswalk.
yeah,
Different lobbying
Yes.
efforts. Yeah, I mean,
I do think that we should
how did
provide.
Chantel get $700 to give, her? I mean, it's
There's
just,
money at the end of the year that
Yeah.
haven't been spent.
I was gonna say, that's like
Have
somebody
$5
didn't spend
back.
enough money on
Except that
coffee.
nice. Sent that nice card, didn't even get the money yet. I don't know.
I think we've got it.
Accounting system is very slow.
So when we talk about budget this summer,
The Workday doesn't do a good job of
we're
dispersing.
make sure that it's not like we're hurting.
Yeah, so, okay, well, that kind of
Leads into,
leads right into Matt's presentation on the Central Park Classic Mini Golf event. So I think if you want to
Sure.
kind of take it from here, and I can share when you're ready, I can stop sharing this and share the budget spreadsheet that you had prepared also, if we need to go into detail on it.
Okay.
But otherwise, take it away.
Well, so the event will be held Sunday, May 18th. In coordination with Central Park Business Association at Flightco Tower. It'll be the third annual fundraiser, community fundraiser. We'll have a planning meeting in a week or two, as soon as we can get a few dates coordinated. And last year, the CPBA sponsored Bluff Lake Nature Center and gave its half of the money to Bluff Lake. And so this year, we're looking for a sponsor to also give half the proceeds. And so we're leaning towards the Sand Creek Regional Greenway Partnership. Because it's their 25th anniversary year, they're doing a big fundraiser around that. And we help raise their profile and give them some money. So that's a possibility. So the way the budget works is, I thought I was asking for 2,000. Somehow it got chiseled down to 1,700.
When I
Well,
looked at
I
it,
think, and you and I had an email exchange. You're not, I think that's if you pull up, so we're actually gonna make money from the fundraiser at the end of the day. The difference is that in the past, Central Park Business Association has paid for the expenses in advance, and then we got our proceeds less half of the expenses.
Yeah.
Now,
you do the.
we are gonna collect the receipts. We are going to pay the expenses, and then we'll give Central Park Business Association their half less the proceeds. So it's basically a zero budget effect, but just the knowledge of the board that we are going to be advancing those expenses and we'll take it from the proceeds. The risk we have is that, although it's not a risk because we don't refund the ticket sales, so we're gonna make enough to cover the expenses. It's just a question of how much we make.
Yes, so the last year we kind of split the sponsorships were on the CPBA website and the ticket sales were on the CPUN website. So to simplify it, we're just gonna have one page where you can buy tickets and sponsor, and that'll be on the CPUN website. And then, yes, the costs are placards for the green side pedestals and some printing costs for posters and a few other miscellaneous costs. But, and sorry, I should have checked my math, but those numbers don't add up to 1,700, they add up to 2,000. So, but the.
Just realized that's what I was looking at.
The first three, because it was 1,700 and I was like, oh, that's not enough. And I put the 300 in, but didn't realize that it didn't foot.
You're an accountant, right? I'm an accountant and I make those mistakes all the time.
But are you a CPA?
It is a CPA job.
Are you a
Anyway,
CPA?
Yeah.
Oh,
6,500
say you
is
should know better, but.
our goal for fundraising. And then, so we would give 3,250 to CPBA and keep the 3,250. We have some other fundraising ideas, so hopefully we can get that number up. I only have 200 people playing. If you scroll up, I had those are the sponsorship levels. So, we're going for 25 sponsors and 200 players. We had 178 people pay to play last year, so only 22 more, I think. They have the apartments on both sides of Flightco are open, so hopefully we can get over 200 this time. And we talked to them about doing a drink special and getting Tito's Vodka to provide some resources to do that. So where we just got to keep the drink money as well, which would be huge, I think.
Yeah, I think that the Flightco guy, I apologize, I don't know, I can't remember his name, Morgan mentioned also like that there's like if Tito's donates products like that would be part of like it could be like a cocktail, like a mocktail so kids could have some and then, and then adults could have it, but also that they could do a brew, like a special, like if they have about 4 week, a 4 weeks notice or 6 weeks notice, they can actually do an event specific beer for folks to order, so.
The main things we need to do if you're interested in joining the planning is just to update our graphics and get a poster produced that we can distribute and put on our emails and social media and on the website so that people can start jumping on board.
And so you'll send out just information about when the planning meeting.
Yes.
Because I think that part of it is coordinating schedules with Haley at CBPA and anybody else from
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Be involved.
I was gonna check with Tommy and you first, a couple of other people on CPBA and then we're gonna we'll probably meet at Flightco during the late morning, early afternoon time period.
They have a coffee shop there too,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes,
if anybody has not noticed that yet. But yeah, that's like, if anybody would like to
I don't
support
know what time they
local
open.
business,
Just open at 8 or something like that.
yeah. Okay.
Brian, if we're keeping like 5,000 in reserve, can we put that in a CD and earn interest on it?
Okay. Body language, body language.
What I would say is that the banking relationship with First Bank, we don't pay anything. So some of the challenges we would have would be, just getting somebody that would have a relationship. I mean, that's why we've just kept things pretty simple. So,
It's not a lot of money. There's not.
First Bank has a
yeah,
high value.
but they,
6 months.
but our nonprofit free, we don't get a debit card. We don't, it's like, they just give you the
Their
account.
balance account.
They don't charge us per check. They don't charge us for deposits.
The MCA's accounts at First Bank, same for us, but I move $12 million through that account a year. And we're earning interest on a good portion of it, so.
I'm just saying that
I got a guy I can put you.
But even $5,000 is not gonna.
Yeah.
But that's 24 more dollars than I had to begin with.
Yeah, this is probably the first year that we've consistently had more than that it could be a discussion. But a CD is not a service that necessarily First Bank would offer. So you'd have to go to an investment fund and they would probably charge us more fees to do it than we would make. And I'm not aware of any of them that do it for nonprofits. If somebody has,
Yeah.
Anybody knows?
I have, we'll talk.
Okay. Thank you. Do we need to take any kind of a vote?
no, I think I wanted to make it very clear that this was just like we have said, there's no budget here, but the way that the treasurer's report will show income, will show expenses, and then we'll show what our net proceeds are.
Okay.
But it'll just be a visibility. Whereas last year we didn't have any of those expenses. So.
I guess, are there any questions from folks, board members on the Zoom meeting? I don't know if anybody else can see if there's any questions. I just want to make
No,
sure.
I've been watching chat. There's nothing in chat.
Okay, if we're good, we can, okay, it is 8:17, so, can move on to the next topic, community survey update and outreach needs. I think, so when I was making the slide deck, it was 270 responses. Heather, I don't know if anything's come in.
It was 270.
Oh.
Right before the meeting started.
So, okay, so, and just for context, would like to, bless you, we would like to get, between 1,200 and 1,500 responses. So we're at 270, so we need to improve it. Jack, I had sent you an email asking if you could share it to, what?
It went out.
Oh, it did
did.
go out,
It
okay,
did.
thank you.
I think it was in
The
council.
only thing
Lewis's
I
email.
would say is,
Yeah,
not at the bottom, but it didn't have the QR code and it just had the link and
Is that okay?
it's the link works fine. I'm just saying
I put whatever graphic I was given.
I can try to add a QR.
I went like.
I'm just thinking if I'm scrolling through the MCA email and I see a QR code, I'm probably gonna stop. If I don't see a QR code.
Are you gonna scan your computer with your phone?
I do that.
A survey, really?
What?
Well, to do a
Well,
little,
no, I mean, if I see a QR.
but I see your point about the
Yeah.
visual, something catchy, I think, yeah.
It is different than every other link
Make
that
you
is.
slow down, like,
I-
at least when you see the QR code.
I mean, I just like Carol, I saw it. Did I click on it into the survey? No, because I was doing 12 other things.
And then just, I do have to say, like, just like for best practices, like, I'll like defer to folks who are like Amanda, Heather, folks who've done this. It's okay for us all, like, as board members to fill out the survey. Okay,
Absolutely.
just, all right.
Sure.
Data point.
Okay, no, I know. I just was like,
Unique data point, that's all it is.
okay,
Just don't do it twice.
I won't.
In sending to personal networks, is it just fine to have the link? Is that enough?
Or however, yeah.
Okay, and what's the deadline?
We get 20.
We'll see how many folks fill it
It
out.
helps to tell people a
Yeah.
deadline, and then if you
Yeah.
wanna bump it like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah,
you go.
I said that it would be open through the end of this month, in the email newsletter. So, I mean, and then if we do want to keep it open beyond that, because that will have been less than a month.
And one more thing.
Oh, well,
Is that on?
just,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a lot of work.
yeah, thanks, Heather.
Hopefully the back end looks.
Yes,
Traveling.
yep, okay.
We might swap our March meeting and our February meeting, if that's possible.
It depends on the availability, I guess, of the speaker you had contacted, but actually, well.
Speaker is the Northfield.
Well, actually, we could just do a very long, like, development discussion, like, we could just table the Metro Districts 101 and then find another time for the domestic violence presentation. I think Amanda had also mentioned that it seems like she would be interested in doing a training for the community.
Sure.
And so actually pulling that out of like the community meeting cadence and just having it as a separate event of the committee might.
Was that your impression as well?
She seemed open to it. She seemed kind of open to just engage with us in whatever ways we wanted her to. So yeah.
I think an event like helping folks like just increase awareness and like feel like
Yeah.
there are ways that they can like support like or identify and support folks experiencing domestic violence in our neighborhood would actually be helpful, like a helpful thing. So I think
Are our friends from Starwood coming to present on?
they are, so
Just give them the whole meeting.
yeah, so
Because
I would say like the shops at
I'll need to have
Northfield is, yeah.
We'll need a half an hour to get through ours because it's
Okay,
complicated.
then,
so.
yeah, let's move you guys to March. Metro Districts 101 in March, shops at Northfield Apartments. And then I think folks will probably have a lot of questions about the commercial, development side of like the shops at Northfield that they may or may not be able to answer. But they have the rezoning, I think is coming, they, like the rezoning application is in.
I got a request for submission from them last week,
Yeah,
which was incomplete. So
and that was for the design review committee or,
No, that was a part of our zoning process.
okay,
It's all intertwined, but
okay.
their top-notch lobbying team filled the forms out wrong, so they got rejected. But
Going into Macy's.
well, Macy's technically hasn't closed yet, so we're not allowed, by law, they're not allowed to tell me what's going to replace it until 30 days in advance of a new tenant taking effect.
I have a guess.
Somebody's already mentioned that it was Diggs or something.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, no, really?
It's already been on Facebook.
That is not the guess that I had.
What's your guess?
Facebook, Carol.
I'll tell you what I'll tell you when we've confirmed it, but they're not allowed to tell me till 30 days before the happens.
Yeah.
What's your guess, Liz?
Is
No,
it-
my guess was because they mentioned that a grocery was
there's gonna be
going
a
in
grocery
somewhere
store.
in that area.
That would be amazing.
So, but I guess apparently not at the Macy's unless they tell you
I
to.
don't know if they could put a grocery store in.
Well, I think you'd have to do a
I don't
major
think-
renovation of the space.
But the problem is that is, so the way they entitle a grocery store lot is different than
Oh.
every other
retail,
retail. It
like-
has a different zoning classification. So I don't know if they could put.
So would they have to go for a rezoning for a grocery in that like shopping center?
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't make it mixed use to begin with.
Yeah,
But yes, they would.
that's, okay.
The other, having worked in retail for 13 years, the other thing is just because Macy's is closing does not mean that they have turned the space back to the landlord or they're reneging on it. Sometimes especially getting Macy's and a big department store like that to build or to come there, Macy's probably wasn't paying any rent, or they were only paying percentage rent. It was, probably a sweet deal. And so, there may be some transition time and all of that.
Okay.
I don't know as it's currently but grocery store there.
Yeah.
But their friends, sure.
We'll also have them here next month, I guess, so we can, you know,
they're still on
folks,
for February.
folks can like, yes, they're on for
Shops.
February. So, yeah, so our next meeting, February 18th, it's gonna be Shops at Northfield, doing a development presentation on the apartments, but if you have questions about, I guess, any of the rest of the what they own, they might be able to answer. We do have, we have 6 minutes. So in those 6 minutes, I just want to talk about some outreach needs for the community survey. So I sent out an email, last week with the spreadsheet, which is basically like the distribution strategy for this survey. And I really do need some help. I have flyers here, to basically go out to like bulletin boards at coffee shops. The rec center, if anybody's going to Central Park Rec Center tomorrow, otherwise I'll drop it off there. It's already at Sam Gary, and I hit the Starbucks on 29th, but Etai's was closed when I went by. So, well, it was like it was late afternoon. But basically, I have about, 15 flyers here, if anybody wants to take them and check out like their whatever coffee shop you go to, and then just mark it on the spreadsheet, so that we know where it's been. If anybody is a member of any of the Facebook groups that are listed on that, if you can reach out, I think for a number of them, if they're interest specific, like houseplant owners of Central Park or something like that, like you'll have to reach out to the admins and just say, hey, this is not on topic, but it's relevant to folks. Like, yeah, it's relevant to folks in this neighborhood. Like, can I share out this survey? But what I would like to do is actually get the survey in all of the spaces that are listed on that spreadsheet, so that we can get a fairly wide distribution and hopefully a fairly wide response, and hit the 1,200 to 1,500 responses. The other thing is for folks who are in the MCA cube, those are the new welcome bags over to the side. There are 25 of them that we need to distribute to new addresses.
That's right.
I guess, actually Trisha, I don't know if Trisha's still on the call. She had sent 45 addresses to Linda. So actually we can pull our addresses.
Yes, I did forwarded those
Oh,
to me.
okay.
So,
So we can,
I can deliver if anybody wants to take any tonight.
yeah, and then we can send addresses, but I think like, 4 or 5 like volunteers getting 4 or 5 like bags, or 5 or 6 bags at a time. And then Matt, if you can like just like.
Yeah, I will send out the
addresses. Yeah.
I've changed my mind. I actually believe they could put a 20-story grocery store there.
A 20-story.
That would be awesome.
But as I,
It's like, that's what the people north of I-70 have been asking for.
yeah,
For a
Let's do it.
20-story
build
grocery store.
up, just can't build out.
Okay.
But the other thing is that there is rumor that there will be a grocery store at 40th.
Rumor.
Yeah.
No, it's real.
very-
And I know what it is. I'm just gonna
Well,
let,
not at 40th.
What is
Well,
it?
at 40th,
Oh,
there will be
tell
a
us.
grocery store.
I signed
So-
documents.
When the meeting's over.
The whole thing, I've signed documents.
you.
But I guess
That's
let's
going
all stay tuned for the
CPUN. I have the design on my.
If anything is more solidified, than it was in November.
No,
It is now 8:27. I guess, is there any final comments,
I can tell you anything
like,
you want to know.
any last minute things?
Profound.
Close the
Nothing
meeting.
profound. It's okay.
No, nothing profound. I will say just, thank you to everybody who showed up. It was Kristen, David, Matt, showed up, Lori, I think, who's on the call. Who else am I missing?
David on here.
Oh, David Allen Harris also, who's come to the DEI events. We all did the parade yesterday. I feel like it's like the Denver version of a polar plunge. It's like, my face was like chapped from like just the freezing air, but it was a really good event. There were more folks doing the parade than I had expected. And so hopefully the weather is friendlier next year, but I think like that actually is a really nice annual event for like to kind of kick off the year. So thanks for the folks who participated. And I think that like, let's keep doing it. So And
Sounds good.
yeah, thank you all for being here. Jack, you looked like you were about to say something. Oh, okay. Anyway,
Visioning a 20-story grocery store. Engineering.
we can like present a design. Anyway, with that, thank you everyone for attending our meeting. We'll see you next month. And
Great.
stay warm, stay safe.
Thank you.
Great, great preference.